I called a pest control company to check my daughter's rental house, while she and her boyfriend were on a 10-day cruise to the Bahamas. 4 hours later, the technician called me back. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Sir," he said, "I need you to come back here right now. There's a little boy locked inside the storage closet under the stairs. He keeps asking me if checkout is done." I drove that 20 minutes in 12. What I found ripped everything I thought I knew about my own family straight down the middle. Before I tell you the rest, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from tonight. I read every single one. My name is Roscoe Finch. I'm 65 years old, and I live in Vinton, Virginia, a small town just east of Roanoke where the neighbors still wave from their porches, and the high school marching band leads the 4th of July parade through town every summer. For 37 years, I worked at Lincoln Elementary School. 14 years teaching 4th grade, 23 years as principal. 37 years of learning what children look like when they're okay and what they look like when they aren't. You develop a sense for it. The child who eats too fast because they're not certain when the next meal is coming. The one who flinches at a raised voice from across a parking lot. The one who goes perfectly still when an adult enters the room. That stillness is learned. Children who live normal lives don't go still like that. I retired 3 years ago. People ask me if I miss it. I miss the kids. I don't miss learning to see the things I learned to see. My wife Constance died 8 years ago of a stroke. She was 53 years old. After she was gone, it was just me and my daughter for a while, and those years were hard in the way quiet. Years after a loss tend to be. You make space for each other. You eat dinner together. You sit in front of the television, not because you care about what's on, but because the television fills a room that would otherwise feel too large. My daughter's name is Yvonne. She's 33 now, bright, restless, always certain that wherever she was standing wasn't quite the right place to be standing. She got a communications degree from Radford University and worked at a marketing firm in Roanoke for 14 months before she decided that wasn't right either. After Constance died, Yvonne moved back home for a year, and I was grateful for her company. Then she met a man named Sawyer Kincaid. Sawyer was 36, divorced, ran what he described as a property management consulting business, helping people list vacation rentals online, from what I could piece together. He had a loud laugh and opinions he delivered as though you'd asked for them, and the particular brand of confidence that lives entirely on the surface because there isn't much underneath to anchor it. The first time I had them over for dinner, he spent the better part of 2 hours explaining short-term rental market trends to me, without once asking what I had done for 37 years. He shook my hand at the door when they left, and it was the handshake of a man who believes he is doing you a favor. Yvonne married him at a small ceremony in Charlottesville. I was there. I was consulted about nothing. 2 years ago, I did what I believed was a generous thing. I owned the 3-bedroom Craftsman on Mercer Street, where Yvonne had grown up. The house where Constance had planted her garden along the back fence, where I had taught Yvonne to ride a bicycle in the side yard, where we had lived the ordinary and irreplaceable life of a family, before that life got interrupted. After Constance died, the house had been too quiet to fix, and I'd been meaning to either sell it or rent out for years. I told Yvonne and Sawyer they could move in rent-free while they got themselves established. I kept the deed in my name. My property attorney, a careful woman named Greta Marsh, who had practiced real estate law in Roanoke for 25 years, told me to do exactly that. I wasn't going to argue with Greta. "Daddy, you have no idea what this means to us," Yvonne said when I handed over the key. "We're going to take such good care of it." People mean those things at the time they say them. The shelf life varies. Within 6 months, they had listed the house on vacation rental platforms. I found out from a strange review online that I happened across. 3 stars, charming home, but the host seemed distracted, and there was children's artwork on the refrigerator the listing didn't mention. When I asked Yvonne about it, she said, they were listing occasionally on weekends to supplement their income and made it sound perfectly reasonable. I let it go. 37 years of working with children has taught me that some conversations need to wait until you have all the facts laid out in front of you. The Sunday calls had already stopped by then. Holiday visits came down to just the one. Whenever I mentioned stopping by Mercer Street, something always came up. Guests checking in. Sawyer had a call. The timing wasn't great. A father learns, after a while, that a closed door is a closed door, no matter whose name is on the deed outside it. And then, one morning in late March, my phone rang and Yvonne's picture appeared on the screen. "Daddy, hi. Listen, I need a favor." No greeting, no warmth to speak of. Straight to the setup, before the ask. The way people ask favors when they already know the answer is going to be yes. "What do you need, sweetheart?" Sawyer and I are leaving Thursday morning for a cruise. 10 days, the Bahamas, one of those all-inclusive deals. The thing is, the pest control company left us a message about evidence of mice in the crawl space, and we need a full interior inspection done before the next guests arrive. Could you call someone and let them in? We'll leave a key under the azalea pot on the porch. A 10-day cruise, but no time to be home for a pest inspection. You can't have someone come before you leave. The timing's just impossible right now, Daddy. We've had this trip booked since January. I told her I'd handle it. She said, "Thank you, I love you," and the line clicked off. No goodbye, no further conversation. Just the soft sound of a person who got what she came for. I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee going cold, and I thought about the stranger's review I'd found, about the children's artwork someone had seen on the refrigerator, about the way Yvonne said, "the next guests," not "if guests come," but "the next guests," as though the schedule was already full. I told myself I was reading too much into it. I had been telling myself variations of that for months. I called Reuben Oates. Reuben had been running his pest control operation out of Salem for going on 18 years. He was a deacon at First Baptist, coached his grandson's Little League team on Saturday mornings, and had done a termite inspection on my own house 2 summers prior. We'd stayed in touch the way you stay in touch with people you genuinely trust. Christmas texts, a wave at the hardware store, a conversation at the gas station that runs longer than either of you planned. He answered on the second ring. "Roscoe, you finally calling about that fishing trip we keep not taking?" I told him what I needed. He said he could do Thursday afternoon, gave me his friends and family rate without my asking, and said he'd call me when he was done. I gave him the Mercer Street address. Thursday I drove out early and let myself in with the key from under the azalea pot. The house I had raised my daughter in didn't feel like my house anymore. Every surface was staged in the specific impersonal way of places designed for strangers. Clean, but not lived in. Neutral prints on the walls where Constance's things used to hang, laminated instruction cards on every appliance, a combination lock on the refrigerator with a note that said "Just amenities inside." Not one photograph of Constance, not one of me, not one of Yvonne as a child. The first 30 years of this house's life had been edited out of it to make room for a listing. I walked through the rooms checking that things were unlocked for Reuben. Kitchen, back bedroom, utility room with the crawl space access. At the end of the main hallway, tucked under the staircase, was a door. I knew that closet. When Yvonne was growing up, it held Christmas decorations and board games, and the good tablecloth Constance only brought out for Thanksgiving. The door was shut now, and mounted on the outside of it was a small barrel bolt, the kind you'd use to secure a cabinet. It was latched. I stood and looked at it for a moment. Nobody bolts a storage closet from the outside in an empty house. I told myself I'd ask Yvonne about it when she got back. I unlatched it, left the door closed, and went to the porch to wait for Reuben. He pulled up right at 2 o'clock, exactly on time, which is exactly what I'd expected of him. I walked him through the house, showed him the crawlspace access, pointed out the areas Yvonne had flagged. He said he'd be a couple of hours. I drove home. I was in the kitchen reading when my phone rang at 4:30. "Reuben?" The voice that came back was wrong. Reuben Oates was a man who stayed level through everything. I'd once watched him deal with a nest of yellow jackets inside a kitchen wall without raising his voice. What came through the phone was not that man's voice. "Roscoe," a pause, a long pause. "Roscoe, I need you to come back to the house right now." "What happened? Did you find structural damage in the—" "There's a little boy in the closet under the stairs." His voice dropped to almost nothing. I was checking near the utility room, and the door swung open a little, and, "Roscoe, he's in there on a sleeping bag. He has a cooler and a lantern. He won't open the door all the way. He keeps asking me if the guests have left." A silence. "Roscoe, please come." I was in my truck before he finished the sentence. I drove that 20 minutes in 12. The kind of drive you don't remember afterward. Just the sound of the engine and the particular cold weight in your chest that builds up from 37 years of reading what children are not saying out loud. 100 yards from the house, my hands started to shake and I let them, because there are moments when your body is more honest than your mind. Reuben was waiting on the porch. He'd taken his company hat off and was turning it over and over in both hands. He was a big man, solid in the way men who work outdoors all their lives get solid. And he looked smaller than I had ever seen him. "He still won't open it more than a few inches," Reuben said quietly. "Roscoe, I've worked on a lot of houses. I don't know what I'm looking at." I told him to wait outside. I went in. I took the hallway slowly. You don't rush toward a frightened child. You let them hear you coming. You move the way you want them to understand. You will always move around them. Unhurried, deliberate, without threat. The closet door was open, about 8 inches. I crouched down in the hallway 6 feet away, put my back against the wall, and let my hands rest open where they could be seen. "Hey there," I said. "My name is Roscoe. The man who scared you a while ago, his name is Reuben. He's my friend. He didn't know you were in there. Nobody is upset with you, and that's the truth." Silence, then a small shuffle of movement. "Are you going to make me leave the quiet room?" His voice was small and careful, in a way that no 5-year-old's voice should be careful. Every word measured before it was said. "No, sir. I'm just going to sit right here until you feel ready. You take all the time you need." The door opened another few inches. A little boy stood in the gap, holding a battery-powered lantern in both hands, like it was something valuable. He was slight in the way that takes a while to get to, the kind of slight where you can see the shape of his collarbone through his shirt. His hair was light brown and cut unevenly, the way hair gets cut by someone without patience or proper scissors. He had on a striped shirt too large in the shoulders, a pair of jeans with a grass stain at the knee, socks that didn't match. Behind him I could see a sleeping bag on the closet floor, a small cooler, a stack of picture books, and a Ziploc bag with crackers in it. His eyes were doing the thing I had seen too many times across 37 years, the measuring. The careful, practiced assessment of whether the adult in front of him was safe. That look is not something children are born with. It is something they acquire. I kept my hands still. I kept my voice low. "Can you tell me your name?" A pause. He seemed to be deciding. "Jonah." "Jonah, that's a fine name. How old are you?" 5. I'll be 6 in October." "Jonah, can I ask you something? You don't have to answer if you'd rather not. How long have you been in here?" He thought about it carefully. He held up his fingers, counting. "Since Wednesday when the people came." He glanced at the cooler. "Mom put food in for me. She said stay quiet and don't come out until checkout was done." "Checkout." He said the word the way children say words they've heard. So many times the meaning has worn smooth. The way other children say recess or bedtime. Just the ordinary word for the ordinary thing. Checkout. I stayed very still. "Jonah, do people come to stay here a lot, with their bags and everything?" He nodded. "On weekends mostly, sometimes for longer." He looked at the lantern. "Sawyer says I'm bad for business." The last 4 words shifted slightly in tone as he said them. Not quite his voice, not fully his words. Borrowed from somewhere else and repeated, without full understanding of the weight they were carrying. I had to put my hand flat on the floor to keep from tipping sideways. 37 years. I thought I had seen every version of this. I had not seen this version. "Jonah," I said, "would it be all right if we went to the kitchen and I made you something to eat? You don't have to stay in the quiet room. Not today and not ever again. I want you to know that." He studied me. He was 5 years old, and he studied me the way a person studies a contract before signing it. "Will Mom be mad?" "I am going to make sure you are safe," I said. "That is my job right now. Can you trust me to do that?" He thought about it for a long moment. Then he nodded. Once slowly, the way children nod when they have already made the decision, and the nod is just the announcement of it. He walked out of that closet on his own. He weighed almost nothing when I set my hand on his shoulder. Reuben was standing in the kitchen doorway when we came in. He turned immediately toward the cabinets, shoulders moving. A man who had worked with his hands for 18 years, who had dealt with every hard and unpleasant thing that hides inside the walls of houses, and he turned away so a 5-year-old would not see him cry. I found bread and peanut butter and made Jonah a sandwich. Reuben poured him a glass of milk without being asked. The boy ate that sandwich in the focused, efficient way of a child who hasn't had a real meal since Wednesday. He ate a second one without being prompted. He drank most of 2 glasses of milk and didn't speak while he ate. Just watched the kitchen around him with those measuring eyes, taking it in. While he ate, I went to the closet and looked inside the cooler. 4 juice boxes, a Ziploc of crackers, 2 string cheeses already eaten, and a folded note in Yvonne's handwriting. Jonah, stay quiet. Back Sunday. Be my good boy. Today was Thursday. I went back to the kitchen. I looked at my grandson eating a peanut butter sandwich at the table, where Constance used to help Yvonne with her homework, and I picked up my phone and called 911. I gave the dispatcher my name, the address, and told her I was a retired elementary school principal with a 5-year-old child in front of me who had been confined to a locked storage closet since Wednesday with a cooler of food rationed out in advance. I told her there were signs of prolonged neglect. I asked for a patrol unit and a CPS priority response. The dispatcher had the codes. She knew what they meant. She moved fast. Then I called Wanda Drummond. Wanda had been a senior caseworker at Roanoke Valley CPS for 22 years before she retired. She and I had crossed paths the way people cross paths when they spend entire careers in the same county, watching out for the same kids. She answered on the second ring. Wanda, I said, I need help navigating something tonight. She didn't ask why. She just said, tell me where you are. The responding deputy came in low and careful and right. He crouched down before he said a word, introduced himself to Jonah by first name, asked Jonah what his favorite dinosaur was. Jonah, said Stegosaurus without hesitation, as though he'd been asked and had the answer ready, and only then did the deputy look at me. The CPS investigator arrived 20 minutes later, a man named Willis, the kind of man whose expression doesn't move much, but whose documentation is thorough and exact. I had met him once at a school board meeting, years back. He looked at me across the kitchen and said my name like he was confirming a fact. He and the deputy went to the closet together. They photographed the sleeping bag, the cooler, the note from Yvonne, the barrel bolt mounted on the outside of the door, the scuff marks worn into the floor from the sleeping bag being laid out and rolled up again many times. Jonah rode with me to the pediatric clinic at Carilion Roanoke because he had already encountered enough strangers in one day. He held the armrest in my truck tightly for the first few minutes. Halfway there, without looking away from the window, he said quietly, Reuben didn't mean to scare me. No, I said, he didn't. He was worried about you. He cares about kids. Jonah nodded and looked back out the window and didn't say anything else until we got there. The pediatric physician's face, when she came to find me in the waiting room, told me everything before the lab results came back. She had been in pediatric medicine for 28 years, and her face said she'd seen this before, and was not surprised and was going to do her job well regardless. Significant malnutrition, iron deficiency, vitamin D levels consistent with extended periods of limited sunlight exposure. A healed fracture in his right wrist that had set itself at a slight angle because no one had taken him to a doctor. Decay in 2 teeth. No medical records of any kind in the past 18 months. No school enrollment. 2 immunizations behind schedule. As far as the state of Virginia was concerned, Jonah Harwell had simply stopped existing in the medical system, sometime in the previous year and a half. I sat in the family waiting room with Willis that night, and we put it together piece by piece. Jonah's father, Yvonne's first boyfriend, a young man who had worked construction, had died in a worksite accident when Jonah was 2 years old. Workers' compensation structured settlement, life insurance policy, combined approximately $1,400 a month deposited into an account in Jonah's name, with Yvonne as the listed custodian. Willis pulled the account records the next morning. The withdrawals tracked almost to the dollar. 14 months of payments on a boat Sawyer had been financing, recurring charges from a Scottsdale wellness retreat they had attended twice, registration fees for a travel and lifestyle content platform where Yvonne and Sawyer posted photographs of themselves at beach resorts and rooftop restaurants and scenic drives through the Shenandoah, captioned with phrases about living intentionally and embracing the moment, every image clean and bright and empty of any child, funded entirely by the money a dead man had left behind for his son. $1,400 a month, every month, for over a year. I drove home from the clinic at 2 in the morning and sat at my kitchen table in the dark. 37 years. I knew every form to file and every door to knock on, and every word that made systems that ordinarily moved slow start moving fast. I had a list ready before the sun came up. At 8 the next morning, I sat across from a family law attorney named Genevieve Hollis, 26 years in practice, a reputation built on cases other attorneys considered too complicated, commendations from 3 different child advocacy organizations on the wall behind her desk. She looked at everything spread across her conference table: the closet photographs, Yvonne's note from the cooler, Willis's preliminary findings, the medical workup, the bank withdrawal records, the boat financing documents, the wellness retreat receipts, Yvonne's social media content archived page by page, every beach photograph, every smiling caption, every sponsored post filmed in the kitchen above where Jonah had been told to stay quiet, and she set her hands flat on the table. "Mr. Finch," she said, "I want emergency kinship placement converted to permanent guardianship. I want criminal referrals to the district attorney for child neglect, child endangerment, and felony embezzlement of a minor's protected funds. I want charges filed against both of them as co-perpetrators." She paused. "And I'd like to know whose name is on the deed to the house where this occurred." "Mine," I said. She smiled the way people smile when an answer is better than anticipated. Yvonne called me from the cruise ship. 3 days later, after Virginia law enforcement had made the appropriate contacts through the proper international channels. "Daddy." Her voice was a version I had not heard before. "What did you do?" "I called pest control," I said. "The way you asked me to. Reuben went to the house and found your son in the closet under the stairs. He had been in there since Wednesday. He had crackers and juice boxes and a sleeping bag and a note in your handwriting telling him to stay quiet. He likes it in there," she said. "He goes in on his own. It's not what you." He asked my friend if checkout was done before he would open the door. I let that sit for a moment. He told me Sawyer said he was bad for business. He said it the way children say things they don't understand yet, in someone else's voice. "He'll understand it eventually. I'll be there when he does." She started crying. Behind her, I could hear Sawyer's voice, lower, coaching her. I held the phone away from my ear until it stopped. "Yvonne," I said, "I need you to listen carefully. You are coming home. Both of you are going to the Roanoke City Police before you do anything else. You are not going to Mercer Street. The locks were changed yesterday because that house is in my name, and both of you are under active criminal investigation in the state of Virginia for the neglect of a child in my property. The barrel bolt is in an evidence photograph. Every withdrawal from Jonah's account is documented. The boat payments are documented. The wellness retreats are documented. Every photograph you posted while your son was eating crackers in a locked closet has been archived." I stopped. I took a breath. "You told him he was bad for business. I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure he knows exactly what he is worth. You will hear about that from a courtroom." The line went dead. The 10 months that followed were the hardest since Constance died. Courtrooms, CPS reviews, biweekly clinic visits, a therapist named Dr. Vickers who specialized in early childhood trauma and who became one of the most important people in Jonah's life and mine. I slept on the couch and gave Jonah my bedroom. I bought him a real bed with a space-themed comforter he chose himself at the store, standing in the aisle for 6 minutes weighing planets against rockets before he made up his mind. A nightlight shaped like a crescent moon. A backpack with a dinosaur on it for school. Shoes that fit. A winter coat. A pair of rain boots with turtles on them that he wore every day for 3 weeks regardless of the weather. Because he had never had rain boots and the novelty of having them hadn't worn off. I learned to cook for a child. Small portions, everything visible on the plate, no big surprises. I learned that he slept better with the hallway light on and his bedroom door open. I learned that he relaxed in stages. First around me, then around Reuben. When Reuben came by one Saturday with a birdhouse kit and they spent the afternoon putting it together on the back porch, then gradually around the wider world. I learned that the first time he really laughed. Not the careful, quiet laugh he came to me with, but the full-body kind that startles even the child it belongs to. It was over a cartoon on a Tuesday morning, and I had to go stand in the kitchen for a while before I could trust my face enough to come back. He started kindergarten in September. I had sold Mercer Street. I could not go back into that house without seeing the barrel bolt on the outside of the closet door, and some things you don't work through. You put them down and build somewhere new. I used the sale toward a 2-bedroom ranch near a good school, 5 minutes from a park with a wooden swing set that Jonah wore through before the first snow came. His teacher pulled me aside in October to tell me he was one of the kindest children in her class. He always notices when someone's by themselves, she said. He goes and finds them. I thanked her and walked to my truck and sat there for a minute before I drove home. Children who have been left alone understand that particular loneliness from the inside. It makes some of them turn inward. I am grateful every day that Jonah turned outward. Yvonne pleaded guilty. 2 years suspended to 18 months, and a felony record she will carry into every job application and background check for the rest of her life. Sawyer took his case to trial. His attorney argued that the closet was a space Jonah had chosen, that the bolt was a precaution, that the cooler was supplemental snacking. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. He received 5 years for child neglect, child endangerment, and felony embezzlement of a minor's protected funds. The judge at sentencing looked across the courtroom at Sawyer Kincaid and said one sentence that I have turned over in my mind every day since. She said, "You financed your leisure on a dead man's life insurance policy while that man's son slept on a closet floor." The boat was repossessed. The rental listings came down. The social media platform collapsed within 4 days of the local paper running the story. The way those things collapse when the audience discovers that the life they were being invited to admire was built on something nobody invited them to see. The followers turned. The sponsors pulled out one by one. The comment sections became what the internet becomes when it is pointed at something genuinely worth its anger. It has been a year and a half now. Jonah is 6, almost 7. He weighs what a child his age should weigh. His wrist healed straight the second time. He laughs with his whole body now, without reservation, without permission, the way children are supposed to laugh. He has a best friend from his kindergarten class who comes over on Saturday mornings for pancakes and spends the afternoon in the backyard building things out of the scrap wood I keep in the shed for exactly that purpose. His teacher says he is reading above grade level and asks questions that slow the whole class down in the best possible way. He calls me Pop. He started somewhere around month 4, without my asking, the way children make the important decisions, quietly, privately, after they've already made up their minds. He doesn't ask about his mother. In the early months he used to. In the same careful, measured way, he asked everything, one question at a time, watching to see whether the answer would be safe before he tried the next one. Then one evening he came and sat beside me on the back porch steps while the light went down, and he said, "Pop, are you going to be here every morning?" I told him I would be there every morning for as long as I had mornings to give. He thought about that for a while. Then he leaned his shoulder against my arm, and we sat there together until the yard went dark. He has not asked the other question since. People ask me sometimes whether I have any regrets. Calling the police on my own daughter. The trial. The sentence. Ending whatever remained of my family. I tell them the same thing every time. My family was already broken. It broke the day my daughter decided a 5-year-old boy was bad for business. I didn't break anything. I just stopped pretending the barrel bolt was on the correct side of the door. 37 years of elementary school taught me that the most important thing an adult can do for a child is notice. Not fix everything. Not have every answer. Just notice. The child who comes to school in the same clothes all week. The one who flinches at a door slamming 3 rooms away. The one who asks a stranger if the guests have gone yet. I thought when I retired that part of my life was behind me. I was wrong. The most important case of my career was waiting for me on a Thursday afternoon in a house with a bolt on the wrong side of a closet door. I'm glad I still knew what to look for. If you've stayed with me this far, I'm asking one thing of you. Think about the children in your life that you haven't seen in a while. The neighbor's kid who used to ride his bike on your street. Your nephew or niece who stopped showing up at family gatherings. The child who went quiet and you told yourself was probably fine. Sometimes it is fine, but sometimes the quiet is the only thing they are allowed. Be the one who notices. Be the one who knocks. And if you want to hear what happened the first time Jonah and I drove out to Smith Mountain Lake and he caught his first fish, what he said when it came up out of the water, and what we did after, hit subscribe. Because that's the story I'm telling next time. Good night from Virginia. Go check on the kids in your life. All of them, especially the ones you haven't seen lately. Those ones most of all.